What's going on, guys? Today I'm working on a 2021 KTM 250 XC TPI. I've got a lot of maintenance to do on this bike. Most of the maintenance stuff you can find online or in the manual, pretty good write-ups. But this particular thing that I'm working on right now, I think probably is worth a video, and that's changing the oil pump for the TPI. This is fuel injected and oil injected, so you got to change the oil pump every so often to make sure that you always have oil going to your engine. And I'm gonna do that proactively. There's nothing wrong with the pump right now, but if it goes out, it's gonna be a bad day, so you need to change it proactively. You can follow the manual, or you can decide for yourself at how many hours you want to do that proactively. Anyways, I'm changing it out, and I'm also cleaning the oil screen inside the oil tank. That's also a maintenance schedule in the service manual, and I figure I'd do them both together at the same time. My bike's got about 80 hours, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean the screen and change the pump at the same time. In my opinion, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the pump at the same time I clean the screen, because for both you kind of have to get the oil tank empty. So I'm gonna do those at the same time and call it good. So let me show you what I got going on so far. I said I've already got the job started, but I want to show you one quick trick that's probably worth some video. Okay, the manual does a pretty good job explaining how to get to the oil screen, and there's also some pretty good videos online on how to change the oil pump. Basically, you remove the bottom subframe bolts on both sides, the one over there and the one over here. Then you loosen the subframe bolts on both sides, but don't remove them. And then you loosen the throttle body hose clamps on both the engine side and the air intake side. And then those just pop out, and you lift up the ass end of the bike, hold it up. You can pull the throttle body out. You can pull the cables through and then put that throttle body out of the way. And then I removed the oil pump. It's just one screw, and I have a little plug that I use. Now, here's the trick that I think is gonna help a lot to not make a mess. Is once I was ready, just before I was ready to open the hose, remove the hose from the oil pump, so I already had the mounting screw removed. I was getting ready to disconnect that hose from the pump. I put this tin foil underneath the pump and made a little channel, and then I had my bottle underneath it, and I was able to catch some of the clean oil. Now, don't put the tin foil in until you've cleaned everything up and you're about ready to remove that hose. That way you don't get any dirt or debris on your tin foil and then going into your oil. So I cleaned everything up, removed all the bolts, removed the hose clamps, and then it was just a matter of loosening. Right before I removed the hose from the pump, I put this tin foil in, caught most of the oil, and kept myself from making a mess. Now the other tricky part is to get to that hose clamp. I need to remove that hose clamp so I can remove the oil screen, and then I'll clean the screen, and then I'll put it back, and then I'll put in my new oil pump. The oil pumps are only like $40, so it's really cheap insurance. Again, if that oil pump fails, it would seize your motor. So I definitely don't want to do that. So I got 80 hours on the bike, and I'm proactively replacing the pump. Now, as far as the piston, I check compression. I got plenty of compression, so I'm not doing anything there. So this is a big service interval for me, changing that pump, cleaning the oil screen, and then checking the intake flange. The rest of that stuff I think is pretty well detailed in the manual or another YouTube videos. Okay, I was able to get that Oetiker clamp removed. This is probably the hardest part of the job. It's just kind of in an awkward spot, as you can see. It's hard to get to, and I was trying to use a screwdriver to undo the ears, but that's not really the best way to do it because those are pretty stiff. So what I ended up doing is using a long screwdriver, and then from the other side of the bike, I was able to put it under the very end of the clamp and lift it up to get it off, to get the little tabs that go in those holes, get those tabs to come out of those holes by lifting up this end the very end of the clamp. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Again, I used a really long screwdriver from the other side. It would have been easier probably to remove the expansion pipe, but I really don't want to do that because this pipe was kind of a pain to put on. This is an aftermarket pipe. But anyways, I was able to get to it. Now I can remove that clamp, remove that T, and the screen that I need to clean is behind that T. And again, I've already drained the oil. That plug's just there so the little drip doesn't get all over the engine. But when I remove that T, I'll probably will get some more oil coming out, and then I'll remove the screen and clean that up and start putting everything back. Since you're already here, it's probably a good time. You know, one of the things in the manual that it calls for is to check that reed valve housing, the reeds. Probably a good time to do all that. I checked mine, they're not cracked, they look good. There is a little bit of daylight when I look through the reeds. I'm probably gonna, I took a picture of it so I can see, you know, document the way it's at right now. I'll probably come back the next time I do this, I'll probably replace those. There was a little bit of daylight, probably more than what I would like, but I think it's okay. The bike's running good. So let me go ahead and finish removing that, and then I'll clean the screen and start putting everything back. Okay, the oil screen is cleaned. Use some brake cleaner to clean that up. You can see it looks a lot like the oil screen from the engine. That just goes in there like that, and this black thing was at the bottom, was flush with the bottom of that little nipple. Again, my bike has about 80 hours, and this screen was pretty clean. Now, I'm religious about cleaning around that filler neck when I do fill it up with oil, or even in between rides. If I see that there's some dirt around there, I'll clean up. So I'm glad to see that the screen was as clean as it was. And again, I know that probably cleaning the screen and replacing the pump seems like a belt and suspenders approach, but it's a $40 pump, and if it fails, it will seize your engine. So it just seems like cheap insurance to me. And while I'm doing that, this screen is just, it's one more clamp to remove. I don't see why you wouldn't take this out, clean it, check it. No need to replace it. I'm just gonna put it back, it's all clean. But at least check it and clean it. Should be good. For me, I'm probably gonna do this every 80 hours. So I'm gonna put this back in and put a new pump in and run that for another 80 hours. And then just continue to be diligent about cleaning around the oil filler neck. So that's it, thanks. Okay guys, it's back together. The new pump is in there. You will have to prime it, don't forget that, it's very important. You do gotta prime that pump. Now the pump comes full of oil. They got it sealed on both ends, so it is already primed and full of oil, but of course trying to get it in, you're gonna introduce some air, so make sure you prime it. And the way to do that is with the, you know, if you have the wake up connector, you plug that into this wake up plug. I didn't have it. I don't have that wake up connector because I bought my bike used and it didn't come with it. So all you need to do is connect the brown and the black and white wire, jump those two together. I stuck a wire over here and jumped those two together. You make the connection while you're holding the throttle wide open. So it's best to have two people, have somebody holding the throttle wide open. You make the connections, you'll hear the pump clicking as it's trying to prime itself to get all the air out. So you make the connection, you hold the throttle wide open, you make the connection, you hold the throttle wide open for at least 5 seconds, you let go, and then you'll hear the clicking. And once the clicking is done, check to make sure there are no air bubbles in the line. And if there's no air bubbles, you can remove your jumper or your plug and you're done. So I'm gonna go test drive the bike. I've done a bunch of maintenance on it. This is the first time it's been back together in a few weeks. So let me go do a test drive. All right guys, hope that helped.